Hi there and welcome to another video. Today I'm doing my monthly reading wrap-up for February 2024. In this video I'm going to talk about each book that I've read in February, starting with my 5-star reads and going all the way down to the 1 stars. Alright, so let's get started with my only 5-star read of the month, which was Poverty by America by Matthew Desmond. It just so happens that my only 5-star read was also a non-fiction book, but I found this one to be really interesting and I learned a few things and I could see myself rereading it in the future. Alright, so let's dive into my 4-star reads, of which there are quite a few more. First up is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. This one was really a page turner and I found it to be a pretty refreshing change from some of the normal things you read about in thrillers. And I was happier to see the main character in this one have a lot more control over what happened to her. Up next is The Soulmate Equation by Christina, and I actually picked this one up because I had read The True Love Experiment last year and I was surprised to find that I actually liked The Soulmate Equation a lot more. In this one, our main character is a data scientist and she's coerced into signing up for a dating app where you get matched with other people based on your DNA. But things take a turn when she gets a super rare match to one of the scientists within the company itself. Up next is The Last Love Note by Emma Gray. If you want a book that's gonna make you cry, this one is a good contender. I found it to be a story about loss, about love, and about choosing what you want your destiny to be. I've had the fortune of never losing anyone close to me, but this book captured grief in such an eloquent way that I could really empathize with the main character. Up next is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacy Willingham. I am a big fan of Stacy Willingham and her other books, so I decided to give this one a go. This one is about a main character whose dad is a serial killer and she finds this out when she's a kid, and despite going no contact with him after he goes to prison, 20 years later when the anniversary of the killings comes up, she finds that she just can't get away from the past. This month I also read The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama, and I'm pretty sure this book was a response to everything that happened in 2020 and a guide for how to get through tough times, but I think that it's still very relevant today and has a lot of information that you may be able to apply to your life if you're going through tough times. Up next is Green Dot by Madeleine Gray, and the first thing I have to say about this one is that I absolutely adore the cover, and the second thing I have to say is that if you want to know more about it, you can check out my full review. Okay, another 4-star read that I had in February was the controversial read Everything's Fine by Cecilia Rabess. Everything's Fine has quite a bit of controversy around it, and I think it's because it has such strong political themes. When this book was first announced, a lot of people went to Goodreads and gave it 1-star reviews despite having never read the book, which caused it to gain some attention. Those 1-star reviewers had some problems with the premise of the book, which was a Black woman falling in love with a white conservative man. I think the big problem with the controversy around this is that this book was framed as an enemies to lovers romance, and people really had some problems with the enemy in enemies to lover being a racist guy. But after having read this book, I found that I didn't feel like this was actually a romance book. There most certainly is a romantic relationship in this book and there are several intimate scenes between the two people, but I feel that most of those scenes are relevant to the story, and instead I see this one as more of a cautionary tale. I resonated with a lot of the tough conversations that took place between Jess and Josh, and I think if you've ever had somebody you love have views that hurt you either directly or indirectly, you may also resonate with some of these conversations. I think that we tend to throw around phrases like true love conquers all a little bit too loosely, and this book addresses how that just sometimes is not true. Moving on, my last 4-star of February was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This one was right around a 3-star for me pretty much the entire time I was reading it, but the ending actually bumped it up to a 4-star rating. Usually this is the other way around. Usually books are good and then the endings disappoint me, so I was very pleasantly surprised when this ending actually increased the rating for me. This one is about Daisy Darker, a person who has been struggling with a heart condition since birth. It's her grandma's 80th birthday and grandma has called the entire family out to her seaside mansion to give them some information about her will. When she reveals the information, it's basically that the only person receiving anything is Trixie, her great-granddaughter. Obviously, the family isn't too happy about this, but nobody can leave the mansion until the tide goes out. After everyone goes to bed, terror strikes, and one by one the family members have to face their worst mistakes. Alright, so now we are moving into 3-star territory, and as a reminder, 3 stars for me is actually a decent rating. For me, 3 stars just means I enjoyed the book, but I wouldn't read it again or recommend it to a friend. So first up in this category is The Takeover by Cara Tanamachi. It's a lighthearted romance that takes place between 2 business people, one who works for a little startup that she loves, and another who works for a big Goliath that's likened to Amazon or Google. I thought this one was perfectly cute and fun and a quick read, and it's just a nice little romance about 2 people falling in love during a corporate takeover. Up next is Funny You Should Ask by Elissa Sussman. I actually read Once More with Feeling last year, and so I decided to pick this one up as well. This one is about a journalist and a Hollywood actor, so it's got plenty of those Hollywood romance vibes. And while I felt the writing was pretty good, the pacing dragged just a little bit too much for me, and that's what kept this one right around 3 stars. Up next is The Bodyguard by Katherine. This one is a fun, sweet romance without any explicit intimacy for those of you who are looking for that kind of romance. And it is about a bodyguard who is our main character who is struggling with her grief over her mother's passing at the beginning of the book. And she wants to throw herself into work so she can quickly get over it, and takes on the biggest project of her career, which is being a bodyguard to an uber famous actor. The project goes kind of sideways, and she ends up living with him on his family's ranch for an extended period of time, and as you may guess, based on the fact that this is a romance, there may be some feelings involved. Up next in the 3-star category is my very first hockey romance, which comes in the form of The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy. Again, I thought this was a perfectly fine romance, and my biggest complaint about this one is that I felt like it was just a little bit too long for what it was. We'll continue the romance streak with On the Plus Side by Jenny Howe, which is a cute romance story with plus-size representation. It takes place on the set of a TV show where plus-size women get makeovers in their life and careers. The one thing I wanted from this book was just more chemistry between our 2 love interests. I feel like it was very strong in the beginning, but kind of tapered off towards the end. Up next in the 3-star section is a little YA novel called Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. This one was super cute, as the name implies, and it is a Twitter war between the daughter of big league burger owners and the son of a local grilled cheese chain. Our 2 main characters go to high school together, and when they figure out they are each behind the companies in this Twitter war, things get more interesting, and our characters work through their coming of age processes, their relationships with one another, and their relationships with their families. From Pretty Little Liars author Sara Shepard, we have Nowhere Like Home, which is a story about a cult that only women go to, and if you want to know more about that book, you can check out my full review. Dare to Lead comes in as another nonfiction book that I finished this February. This one is by Brene Brown, and it just offers simple, straightforward tips for how to be a better leader in the workplace. After reading The Graham Effect, I decided I wanted to read a few more by Elle Kennedy, so I picked up The Summer Girl. Just like with the other Elle Kennedy on this list, I thought that this was a perfectly solid 3-star romance. And the final 3-star on this list is Fangirl Down by Tessa Bailey. This is one of my last reads of February, as it came out, I think, the very last week of February, and I enjoyed it okay. Tessa Bailey is kind of a hit or miss author for me. I really enjoyed It Happened One Summer and Secretly Yours, but how much I enjoy her books tends to just depend on the characters, and this one happened to be a 3-star read for me, but I would definitely encourage you to check her out as an author because she does have some very good ones. And going into my 2-star reads, we actually happen to have a Tessa Bailey one here. This one is a short piece that she did as an exclusive with, I think, Audible. I grabbed this one as an audiobook during a road trip, and it just did not vibe with me. There were some things I didn't like with some of the intimate scenes, and it was a little bit of insta-love, so if you don't love insta-love, you may not like it, but if insta-love is one of your favorite tropes, then you may actually enjoy this one more than I did. I only had one other 2-star read in February, and that was Accidentally Amy by Lynn Painter. This book kind of centers around a meet cute that happens in a coffee shop after our main character has stolen someone else's coffee. So the love interest doesn't actually know her name and instead thinks it's the name on her cup, which is Amy. But this love interest turns out to be her boss, so the charade is up pretty quickly there. While this one had great potential, it ultimately just was not it for me, and I think it just has to do a lot with the pacing at the end of the story and the third act conflict, which had a little bit of miscommunication vibes. Finally, I have just a single 1-star read for this month, which was Untangle Your Emotions by Jenny Allen. I got this one as an advanced reader copy, and I had gotten a little bit into the book before I realized that this is not actually a self-help book or self-development book as written by somebody with qualifications for handling emotions, someone like a therapist or a psychologist, and instead is written by Jenny Allen, whom has her degrees in religious studies. I absolutely don't think there's anything wrong with writing religious books that help people, or especially Christians, to strengthen their spirituality, but I do have a problem with these books, which a lot of her books seem to be like this, where they are marketed, titled, and have covers to make them appear more like they are self-help books or self-development books when they have very, very heavy themes of Christianity. For example, I tried reading Find Your People back when I was reading a lot of books about making new friends, and I was confused why church and church groups were mentioned so often until I looked into the author and realized that she is a Christian author. I think that it would be a little more honest and transparent to title these books with what they are, rather than making them seem like they're for an audience that they just are not for. So Untangle Your Emotions is the only book that I DNF'd in February, and that wraps up everything I read this month. In February of 2024, I read a total of 22 books, 10 of which were romance. I had kind of a loose goal to read a lot of romance this month for Valentine's Day, and I think that I kind of accomplished it. My average rating was 3.2 stars, with just one 1-star book and one 5-star book. As always, you can follow me on Goodreads or Instagram if you want to learn more about what I'm reading now and what I plan to read next. If you're interested in any of the books that I talked about in this video, you can find links to them in the description. Thanks for watching.